What's going on, gamers? I'm Merkaba18. I am going to be covering today our second build for Diablo IV Season 4. We're going to jump right into it. We're going to talk about talents, gear. We're going to talk about the Paragon board. There's a lot to get to. This is the Necromancer Bone Spear Minion build. Now, I never thought that I would see those two words together, or that combination of words, but here we are. Diablo IV Season 4 has unlocked everything. So literally any kind of build that you want to, for the most part, is going to be pretty viable. Now, having said that, I think this is going to be one of the strongest builds of the season. So let's dive right in. But before I do, I just want to make sure you hit that sub button. Sub to the channel, like, comment below. And if you are a new viewer, I do stream this over on Twitch full time. We'll be starting on Tuesday, May 14th for the release of Season 2. Hope to see you on Twitch and on TikTok. All right, let's jump in. First things first, this is a bone build at its core, as well as a minion build. So we're going to go bone splinters, 5 out of 5 there. We're going to go enhanced for the fire additional projectiles, if above 50 essence, and that's going to be an important stat here in just a minute. We're going to go hitting the same enemy at least 3 times with the same bone spears or splinters, gains 8% crit chance, which is going to be one of the most important stats. So we'll talk about that more in just a minute. Now, next is Bone Spear. Centerpiece of the build in terms of the high damage coming directly from me as the player, as the Necromancer. 5 out of 5 there. We're going to go enhanced for the shards that split into 3 and do more damage. And then we're going to go Paranormal, which gives you increased crit chance. If the Bone Spear's primary projectile crits, it fires 2 additional bone shards upon being destroyed. We're also going to take 1 for Unliving Essence. We're actually going to take 2 here for Unliving Essence. Give us 6 extra Essence, and then we're going to go Imperfectly Balanced. Skills cost, core skills cost more, but they do increased damage. Then we're going to come down. We've got 1 out of 5 for Blood Mist. We only are using Blood Mist mostly as a escape from CC and to create an unstoppable condition, which we will talk about in a little bit. We're going to go enhanced for the Blood Mist. That really doesn't factor in, but this one does. You gain crit chance after the Blood Mist ends. So we're really only using this one to get to this one. The 10% crit chance is huge there, so we're going to grab that. Now, this is also a minion build. So we're going Skeletal Warrior Mastery, 3 out of 3 there. We're going Death's Embrace, which is one of the single best passives in the entire game. Close enemies take more damage and deal less damage to you, so you get a little bit of mitigation, a little bit of extra damage. Now, that's going to be most enemies in the game, whether you're a caster or not. The essence of Diablo IV is most everything's pretty close to you, so you're going to do a lot of extra damage. We're going to grab Death's Embrace, or Death's Approach, excuse me, for 2 out of 3, gain that extra 8% movement speed, which will help in things like Gauntlet and some of the endgame content. We're going Skeletal Mage Mastery for that 60% bonus to mages. We're going to skip all of the curses and all of the Corpse and Macabre skills. We're going to go Serration for the increased crit chance for each 30 essence above. 0.9 increased critical strike for each 30 essence you have upon cast. So you gain a lot of crit chance there. You're going to go Compound Fracture. You critically strike 10 times with bone skills. Your bone skills deal more damage. So it becomes a compounding factor. You crit more, therefore do more damage, and then the crits do more damage, and so on. So it starts to stack a little bit, which is a feature of this build. We're going to go every 100 essence you spend reduces the cooldowns of your bone skills. Super helpful, which especially with Bone Storm. We are going to then go Evulsion, which gives you increased damage to vulnerable targets. Now, most everything should be vulnerable at some point or another, either through you or some of your co-op players. We are then going to go Golem Mastery, which gives you 75% increase to damage and mastery, or damage and life for your Golem, which is a centerpiece of the build as well. We're going to go Inspiring Leader, which gives your minions attack speed if you're healthy for more than 2 seconds. Hellbent Commander, which increases all damage by your minions if you are close to them. Most of the time, you're going to be close to them. So 45% buff to your second main damage booster here. Bone Storm, Prime Bone Storm, Supreme Bone Storm. Your critical strike chances increase by 20% while Bone Storm is active. Huge! So this does a lot of damage. This is going to give you damage reduction, and you're going to gain crit while it's active. So, and as you have Lidless Wall, when we talk about here in a little bit, it's going to start to really come together. Now, you can make a case for two different types of passives here. In this particular case, I took Ossified Essence. Your bone skills deal increased damage for each point of essence you have above 50. So that becomes a lot of extra damage. Now, you could also make a case for Kalen's Edict, but I think the Paragon board focuses so heavily on minion damage that I don't think that is the best option for this particular build. So I went with Ossified Essence just to boost Bone Spear's overall damage. And then you're going to come up here. Skeletal Warriors, we went Skirmishers, and you're going to go each time you critically strike, which should be a lot. Your Skirmisher's next attack critically strikes and deals more damage. You can apply. Can only happen once every 3 seconds. Shouldn't be too much of an issue. You should see it quite a bit. In terms of our mages, no surprise, we're going to go Bone. Reduces the life cost of your Bone Mage's attacks to 10%, and after being alive for 5 seconds, they deal way more damage. Then we're going to come down to our Golem, which is Iron. Now, we did not choose Bone. I don't think this is going to be some of your better options here. I do think if you went Thorns, maybe that would be a good option. But this is the other one that can kind of trigger some vulnerability and increases your overall damage. You could also make a case for the Slam here, which is super, super helpful. But I went with the vulnerability just to boost everyone's overall damage there. Could make a case for either one, though, however. All right, now let's switch over to, first we're going to talk about gear, because this is kind of important, and it's going to obviously change a lot once we get into the like higher 100 level masterworks and all the like min-maxing. You can take like individual stats and like stretch them as far as humanly possible. We're not going to get too much into that in this video. One, because I haven't gotten to spend a lot of time on that. And two, that's all going to really depend on your personal preferences. So let me talk about a little bit in terms of priority of stats. Obviously, critical strike chance, obviously critical strike damage, vulnerable damage, things like minion damage, attack speed for you, attack speed for your minions are going to be super important, as well as an underrated stat, which is maximum essence and essence on kill, stuff like that are going to be really important to this build. As you saw throughout some of the talent trees, and you'll see in the Paragon board, the more essence you have, the more damage it's going to do, etc. Now, in terms of leveling, let's jump into some of the options. Now, once you're into some of the mid to late game, before you start like min-maxing and rolling these into oblivion, you're going to want something like Deathless Visage. Another option would be obviously... I did this on the last video. The name of that ultra unique is Shaco. If you get Shaco, put it on, obviously. But Deathless Visage is a good placeholder. Things like Occult Dominion aspect are really helpful. Blood Getter, also super helpful. We'll talk about some of those here in just a minute. In terms of other uniques, you're probably going to want to Ring of Mendel, which gives your minions a chance to explode for a bunch of physical damage. Gives them attack speed and minion life. There's also a little bit of a Thorns build in there. Not super helpful, not necessarily super important, but everything else about it is. We're going to go T-Balt's Will here, which the unstoppable trigger is coming from Blood Mist. You're going to gain a bunch of extra damage there once that is triggered. Plus you get all the damage reduction to close enemies, potion capacity, all the other good stuff there. Then Flicker Step is going to trigger Bone Storm quite a bit more often, and you're going to do a lot more damage with it. So those are the three main ones, and then obviously Lidless Wall is a super important one because it takes and like puts your Bone Storm all over the place and creates a bunch of extra Bone Storms for you for free. Now, your Amulet, this is a super important one. You're going to go Aspect of the Frenzied Dead here. Each time one of your summoning minions damages an enemy, they gain 15 to 21% attack speed, up to 45 to 63%. So each time they do damage, they're going to gain a bunch of attack speed, which then makes them do more damage faster. You're going to go Aspect of Occult Dominion here, which gives you more mages. Bone Spear's primary attack makes enemies hit beyond the first vulnerable for 3 seconds. So it's also going to be a little bit of vulnerable trigger there. You could also go with Splinter, some other ones, maybe like Bloodgetter or some of the other options that I've mentioned. Here, we're going to go Aspect of Serration. We're going to go, this gives you a key passive bonus for crit in addition to just flat damage. Super helpful there. You could also make a case that you could put that up here on your amulet. We're also going to go Edge Masters here, which gives you more damage based on how much primary essence you want. Now, you could also make the case here for going with like the extra mage or the extra minions, like warriors, or you could do the cooldown on the golem essence or aspect. All of those are great options. Again, all of that's going to kind of like mean less as you progress in and get the gear exactly where you want it. And we'll do a separate like supplemental video where I'll run down some of the master working for you guys on these as well. So those are the big like stat priorities, some of the big aspects that you're going to want, uniques you're going to want. Let's go into the complicated one, which is the Paragon board. All right, now with this one, obviously we start down here. This is the way I would recommend starting all of them now. Magic resistance, max life. Scared me there, sorry. Somebody subbed to the YouTube channel as I was sitting here talking. Lol, thank you for the sub, whoever that was. So I was like, wait a minute. So we're going to come over here and grab max life. All of these, we did skip this 1% resilient or resistance because each point is valuable, and 1.5% resistance in order to get to the end is one that I can give up on. First thing we're going to do is come up to our first glyph, which is going to be Essence, which gives you bonus to your crit damage. 154% at max life is huge, or max level, excuse me. And then you're going to also do more damage with crit strikes, flat multiplicative damage to any enemies that are not healthy, which is going to be most every enemy. A lot of times that's super helpful also with bosses. So there's a little bit of a multiplicative trigger there as well. Now, it's important to note, I don't believe that that is an additive bonus. It means that if they're not healthy, you do 22% more damage with crit strikes, meaning you're not adding crit damage to them, to the crits. This is on top of a different bucket, essentially. So you want to go all the way through and get all the dexterity. You're going to come over here and skip armor. Now, I mentioned in my last video, there's an armor cap now, so armor is less important. We can skip that and spend the points elsewhere. We are going to grab these flat damage increases and the willpower up here. Then we're going to come up and get our second board, or our first board, excuse me, which is going to be, actually, yeah. We're going to grab this instead. Okay, second board, first additional board, is going to be for Bone Graft. Hitting enemies with bone skills increases your damage by 1% and max essence by 2%, or by 2 for 8 seconds, stacks up to 8%, and increased damage in 16 max essence. Now that's kind of complicated, but basically your damage and your max essence goes up every time your bone spear hits something, or your bone skills hit something. That includes Bone Storm, Bone Splinters, Bone Spear, all of the extra little knockoffs that happen as well. So you get a bunch of extra essence, you get a bunch of extra damage, which then increases your damage further because you're gaining more essence. You start to get the picture. We are going to then also grab Shaper of Bone and all of the necessary ones around it. We did skip this one as a way to get extra bonus there, and that gives us our second glyph, which is Warrior. We're going to gain 194% damage to our warriors, skeletal warriors, and all minions gain 30% more armor, which helps keep them alive. So almost 200% bonus just to skeletal warriors there. Huge, huge bonus. We did grab a little bit of resistance here. You could make a case to skip that. And instead, we could skip like that one, for example, and come over here and grab this one. It's up to you. Now, we could do also, we're going to come over here and grab Reinvigorate, which gives us max essence, and then extra essence on kill so that you're regenning it, so that you stay above the thresholds to trigger additional bonuses. I skipped this half of the Paragon board just because it's not as important and it's too expensive to get to it. I did grab Calcified for the crit strike damage with bone skills and bone skill damage. We grabbed Entombed for the same thing all the way around. And then we come over to our third board, which is for Hulking Monstrosity, which is the Golem bonus. So that's going to give you 40% increased damage and 100% max life. Or no, excuse me. 40% increased health and then 100% increased damage. So by the time this is over, your minion's going to do a lot of damage, basically. And then we're going to come down, grab Borrowed Strength, damage while golems are active. Now, this is your damage. So every time your golem's active, you're going to do additional damage with those. We did skip this half. Golem armor and minion resistances is not as important, especially since they gained some before, and you're going to gain some on gear. We are going to grab our second glyph, or third glyph, excuse me, which is Golem. Gives us 174% damage to golems, plus the 25% golem increased damage because we hit the trigger for the additional bonus. You're going to grab all of the willpower within range. We did also grab Mutation, which gives us more damage as well, right there. We came down and we got Frenzied Golem for Frenzied Golem damage. Those are worth spending points on. All of these are attack speed and golem damage. Super helpful. We came up, skipped Flesh Horror. We did grab Infused Golem. Gives them max life and golem damage. Then we come up to our next board, which is Cult Leader. Cult Leader gives all minions increased damage for each 20% of attack speed bonus they have. My God, all these YouTube subs. Thank you for all the YouTube subs. Make sure you hit that YouTube sub button as well. Keeps scaring me when the alert goes off. Cult Leader, each time they gain 20% attack speed bonus, which should be a lot on your gear, they're going to gain 15% extra damage. We are then going to skip Armored Clad for the minion health and armor. We also skipped Infused Warrior. It's too expensive to get over here. It is a good bonus. It's just too expensive. We need to get back up to our final glyph slot instead, and you'll see why in just a minute. So we did grab the 10% damage to minions and attack speed, which is going to help with their bonuses. All the way across here, these are all going to count. We did skip the mage damage as well over here because it is too expensive. You have to make choices at certain points, and this is one of them. We did grab, in order to skip all of those, we ended up getting instead a flat 184% damage, which you can't match, obviously, by spending the points over here, to mages. So then we also get 33 or 35% resistance for elements, which is huge to keep them alive and make sure that they're doing more damage. We got minion damage and minion damage here. We did skip all of these just because obviously we ran out of points, but we did get damage reduction in order to get this intelligence and boost this up. That's the reason we made this choice here, because this gives us additional bonuses that these cannot match. So that is the Paragon board, and all of this comes together. Essentially what you're going to have is an army of minions on top of what is already a pretty strong build with Bone Spear. The obvious difference is you're not going to be able to take Bone Spear to the level that you could if you just simply focused on bone skills or went with some of the more like Bone Spirit builds that are out there right now. But I think with this combination of all of these minions swarming and doing a ton of damage, and with the Bone Spear hitting pretty hard, and all the trigger bonuses that we're getting, it's going to absolutely fry. I have done a lot of testing on this build on the PTR, and I think it's absolutely absurd. Cannot wait to try it. Hope you enjoy this build, and we'll see you again soon for the next one, which will be a sorcerer build. Thank you for watching.